You're an accomplished comic book writer, but I imagine there are so many people out there love comic books and maybe dream of doing what you're doing, and you're actually doing it. How did that happen?
You know, I've loved comics since I was a kid. I've always wanted to tell stories. My dad was a master storyteller, and I wanted to do the same thing. So it was just, it was natural that I wanted to do comics. I didn't know how to do it. I used to send letter after letter to Marvel and DC saying, here's the greatest Batman story you've ever heard. And I would get a form letter back every time. What eventually worked for me, and it took me a long while to break in, is I was working at a comic book store. Peddling comics to people. And one of my coworkers was a comic book artist, an aspiring artist. And the two of us started working together on a book, and we published it through a smaller independent publisher. And that book, that came out, and I thought, this is it. I'm set. I am now a super famous comic book writer.
I've done it.
And then I kept working at the comic shop. And, and a few years later, we worked on another comic together, and that started getting the attention of other publishers, other editors, and it was on Twitter. An editor at DC reached out to me on Twitter and said, hey, email me, I want to talk to you about doing a comic. And I was like, oh man, I'll do a 6-page backup story for some character no one's ever heard. And then I called him and he said, yeah, we want you to do a Batman Superman comic, which is the most...
Out the gate, out the gate.
So it's the most intimidating 2 characters to write for me. But that was really that opened the door, and then that led to another project, and that led to another project. And
that the opening of the door to that opportunity was you just creating something that did really well.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, how do I, people have different goals. Some just want to do their own thing, and that's awesome, and that's noble. And some want to write for Marvel and DC, and that's awesome, and that's noble. But usually for either of those, I tell people, just do your own thing. Do something that's true to you. Do something that, that if someone reads it, they know that's your story, and that'll open doors for you more than